Marissa from Little House Living here today. I thought today I would make some of my homemade mixes with you. All the recipes I'm going to make today are from my book. If you don't have it or haven't seen it yet, this is my book, Little House Living. It is filled with all kinds of different recipes for your household, your skin, or your kids, and then there's a whole section in the back with all kinds of food recipes. So that is where these recipes are coming from. I put them together on printables. So I'm going to really quick share this video so more people can check it out. And I'm going to share the link so you can download these mixed recipes so you can make them along with me today, or you can make them later. Either way, I'm going to share this link so you can grab a copy with these really quick. And if you're just hopping on, let me know where you're watching from, or just comment and say hi. Just 1 second. Let me share this really quick and grab the link to that freebie. Whoops. My fingers do not want to work today. Okay. Hi guys. Okay, hopefully you can see me. I'm coming to you live from my new kitchen. We just shared our post this week, so we're pretty happy with how it turned out. It's really bright in here and definitely fun to make recipes and stuff. So, okay. So today I am going to get started with the hamburger help mix. So this mix recipe is really similar to like hamburger helper that you'd find in the store. This is kind of just the base recipe, and you can tweak it or put additions to it to make it like a different variety. And if you have my book, this one is on page 166, well, 167 is the recipe for this one. And I think it's got a couple variations on the bottom of this one if you want to make something different. So there's where that is. Otherwise, just grab the free printable, and I dropped the link in the live here. Oh, it won't let me pin that. It is in the comments. So just scroll through until you find that link. Okay. So I'm going to make just a couple jars of this. This recipe is really nice because you can use it for your whole meal. You can use it for a side dish. Like I said, you can customize it if you want a cheesy recipe or a tomato-based recipe or anything like that. It's really fun to make different things. So I'm going to make 3 of these. So what you need is a couple pint jars. That's what this recipe will fit in. And some elbow macaroni, some arrowroot or cornstarch, whatever you use, salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. And that is all you need for the base for this recipe. If you are reading the recipe in my book or on the printable, it also has paprika and sugar. Both of those are optional. I don't have any paprika right now because I either don't have any or haven't unpacked it yet. So I don't have any today. And I'm not going to add any sugar. It's just an optional thing. It changes the flavor just a little bit, but it's not necessary in the recipe, so you don't have to add your family's needs. So like, we can't go to the store and buy hamburger helper because I have to have something that is gluten-free. I have several children that have dairy issues, so we can't have any dairy in it. So by making this recipe myself and being able to customize it, we can actually enjoy this, and otherwise we couldn't. So when I make my mixed recipes, I use the funnel that I use for canning, it fits right inside the jar. And so I'm going to go ahead and add the macaroni first. Sometimes when you put the spices on the bottom of the jar, they can stick in the bottom, especially if you live somewhere where there's high humidity. At our last place, I learned to not put the spices on the bottom of the jar because then they harden into this big clump. So I'm going to put the macaroni. For each recipe. Like I said, this is gluten-free. These are rice noodles. So we use those in our mixed recipes that need. It's a really easy substitution. And I mean, you can just imagine, like if you actually were to buy the boxed gluten-free version of like a hamburger helper in the store, it would be 10 times more expensive because it has gluten yourself. It's really not. Pasta, and then we need a tablespoon of our starch in each of the jars. You don't necessarily need the funnel for that. And I just I am not a measurer. Do not measure my ingredients, so yes, that is good enough. And then now my spices. So this is just really basic: salt, onion powder, and garlic powder. And it's just 1 teaspoon of each of those. So it's really nice to make more than one mix at a time. So like today I'm making 3 of this one because then you have all your ingredients out and you only have to get them out once. Alrighty. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and scroll through the comments of this video, and I did post a link to the mixed recipes so you can download them. Otherwise, if you happen to have a copy of my book, right now we're working on the hamburger help mix. It's on page 167. Okay, actually, we're done. So that is all it takes to make this recipe. I usually don't mix it up too much because I don't want those spices to all fall to the bottom and make that big clump like I talked about. So that's it. And this is the only mixed recipe that I make with the elbow macaroni. So I don't really have to label this one because I know that it's the hamburger help mix. But at this point, if you're making these and you're making a whole bunch of different kinds and you've got similar ingredients, you might want to label them. And then, okay, so to make this recipe, all you need is to use 1 jar of your mix, and then you are going to cook up 1 pound of ground beef, and then put until it's all the way brown, and then add in your mix, add in 2 cups of milk, 1 cup of water, and just kind of let it simmer together. It helps to put the lid on. Now, if you can't have milk, if you are dairy-free like we are in our household, you can use a milk alternative, coconut milk, almond milk, whatever you can have, or you can add broth instead, like chicken broth or vegetable broth, beef broth, any kind of broth will work really good too, just to kind of add a little bit more flavor to this recipe. And then when it's done, you can stir in a cup of cheddar cheese. Sometimes we do that with a cheese alternative that we use. Most of the time we just don't add that and just kind of go with the creamy noodle hamburger dish instead. But those are some alternatives that you can use in this recipe to make it fit your allergy needs or health needs or things like that. Like I said, you can definitely leave out the sugar. You can leave out or lower the amount of salt. It just depends on what you need. So that is the hamburger help mix recipe. I'm just going to take a minute and check the comments really quick and see if anybody had any questions on this particular one before I move on to the next one. Okay. All right, I don't see any questions. So if you had a question, I will look through everything a little bit better when I'm finished with the video. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. Okay, the next recipe that I'm going to make is the muffin mix. And this one is on page 199 in my book. And then there's a whole bunch of add-in ideas on page 201, just on the next page. So we love this recipe. We make it all the time because my kids love having muffins for breakfast. I'm just going to move a couple things around here. Let's see. Let me drop the link in there again. A couple people said that they're having trouble to see the download. Okay. I'm not sure why it won't let me pin that. Oh, there it is. Okay, I've pinned the link to the printable recipes in the comments, so hopefully that will work now. You can just let me know if that's working or not. Okay, so we're gonna grab our bowl. And this is all-purpose flour. This is gluten-free flour. Either regular flour or gluten-free will work in this recipe. So sugar and baking powder. And then I've already got the salt. So you need a big jar for this one. This is a ½ gallon. Sometimes I use the ball jars. Most of the time I use these because I have a whole bunch of these. I use them for all my bulk stuff. Let's see, I'm going to set that aside though for now. I'm going to mix this up in the bowl just to make sure all the ingredients get mixed together before I add it to the jar. And that's why I'm wearing my apron today, because I am a messy baker. So I will ruin my clothes. I do ruin my clothes all the time. Alright, so we need 6 cups of this flour. And this muffin mix recipe will make 3 batches of muffins. So it's a nice big bulk recipe. All right. Used up my whole jar. I gotta fill it up now. So we've got 6 cups of flour, and like you said, I used gluten-free flour instead of the regular flour. Then we need ½ cup sugar. This is another reason why I like this recipe, because it only has ½ cup of sugar, and that is spread out over 3 muffin batches. So it is not very much sugar for a lot of muffins. My salt. Oh, gotta quick clean out my teaspoon. I don't think we want any of our muffins to taste like garlic. Unless they were like a savory muffin, that'd be kind of good. There's 1.5. And 3 tablespoons of the baking powder. There we go. I'm going to use a whisk to stir this together so I don't make a huge mess. And it doesn't have to be perfectly stirred together, but just so that there's not like one huge clump of baking powder somewhere or something, since this is not all going to go into the same recipe. Just kind of need it incorporated throughout. All right. This is where I make a big mess. So I love this muffin mix recipe because it's just kind of a blank slate. And there's so much that you can do with it, because sometimes you want chocolate chip muffins, and sometimes you want banana muffins, and sometimes you want any other kind of muffin that you can think of. And making a blank slate recipe like this, you can do whatever you feel like at the time. You're still saving time by having the base recipe prepared. So it makes it easy, especially if you're like me and you get up really early in the morning to make breakfast. You don't want to have to figure out where all your ingredients are. All right, are we going to fit? There we go. Alright. Then you can just label it muffin mix. Keep it in the cupboard until you need to use it. So to make this, you'd use 2 1/4 cups of the muffin mix, 2 eggs, a cup of milk, and you can use a milk alternative, and 1/4 cup of butter. And I have been able to leave out the butter successfully. It does add a nice rich flavor if you're able to add dairy products, but if you can't, use the milk alternative and just leave out the butter. And then you're going to add about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of add-ins, so pumpkin puree or chocolate chips or things like that, or 1 or 2 bananas, something like that. It's fun to play around with this recipe because you can make all kinds of things. A couple of weeks ago we added, instead of the milk, we added orange juice, and then we added in, I think, 1 or 2 bananas. So we had these banana orange muffins, and my kids loved them. They ate almost the whole batch for snack that day. So I love this recipe. I'm going to move this stuff and get ready for the last recipe that I've got on here. Okay, I'm just going to check the comments really quick. Okay, like I said, if you have some questions, throw them in there, and I'll try to scroll through the comments a little bit better all the way at the end, and make sure that I didn't miss anything. Okay, the next thing I'm going to make is instant oatmeal packets. So I have a child that will eat oatmeal every single day if I let him. So we like to have these instant oatmeal so he can make them himself, because he loves to do that. You can make these in the little snack-sized baggies if you want to, and just reuse them. You could make them in a bulk mix if you wanted to. I'm going to make them in these little jelly jars because they fit really nicely too. And then obviously we can wash and reuse them when we make another batch. So let me grab my stuff here. This recipe is super simple, and you will wonder, if you ever bought these from the store, you'll wonder why you bought them from the store. This recipe is also in my book, and I've got it here on page 205, or 204, both pages. And it's got some ideas for some add-ins that you can use with this too. I got some strawberries and some dried blueberries on sale last week, so we're going to add those into the ones that we're making today. Okay, I'm just going to rinse this out really quick. So this is another recipe that you can customize based on your family's needs. Most instant oatmeal recipes use milk powder in them. I have it as an optional ingredient in mine. It's not totally necessary. You can add milk powder. If you can't have milk, you could add powdered coconut milk, but that's kind of expensive. Otherwise, you can just leave it out altogether, and that's what I'm going to do today because my child that loves oatmeal cannot have any dairy. So, all right, so I've got my oats, and all of this stuff pretty much that I've used today, with the exception of some of these small things, I buy in bulk. Most of it I buy from Azure. It's a co-op that I've mentioned a couple times on the blog. We've been ordering from them for I think about 10 years now. So that's where we save a lot of money by buying all this bulk stuff. Okay, so in each of these jars, I'm going to make 5, so it's got one for every day of the week. We need a half a cup of oats. You want to use quick oats in this recipe, otherwise you'll have to cook it on the stove, which is fine too. Just won't be as instant. We're going to stick our half a cup of oats in each of these. There we go. Gotta wash out my tablespoon really quick. And then 1 tablespoon of brown sugar in each of these. And if you're trying to cut back on the sugar, you could leave it out. You could cut it in half. A lot of times I will just leave it out, and sometimes I'll add maple syrup or something else instead of the sugar. So then if you were using the milk powder, you'd add in 2 teaspoons of milk powder to each of these also. But since you're not, that's pretty much it for this one, except for the additives. So if you made this as a bulk recipe, you'd either have to make it plain or enjoy whatever flavor that you decided to make it. The nice thing about making these little individual ones is that we can make a couple different flavors instead of having to do all the same one, and then it's just ready. So I'm going to add in a couple strawberries to some of these. And a couple with blueberries. And that is it. And we can put the lid on, and I can stick these in the pantry, and they're easy to grab, easy for my son to make, and he loves being able to cook, so this makes him feel very independent for just being a little 4-year-old. That is it. Okay, so like I said, there should be a pinned comment with a link to grab all of these recipes as a printable. My husband typed them all up. Otherwise, if you have my book, all these recipes are in my book. And in my book, there's a whole bunch of different add-ons that you might want to put up, just ideas like I put strawberries and blueberries in this. There's a whole bunch of different ideas on how to make different flavors in the oatmeal and in the muffins, and a couple different varieties of the hamburger help mix. There's a chicken help mix, and just all kinds of things. So there's that, and that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, try and stick them in the comments now, and I'll try to go through those. Otherwise, that's what I wanted to show you today. I love making recipes, like mixed recipes. Like I said, it saves me time, because when I'm ready to make something for supper, I can just go pull it right out of the pantry and I've got the rest of the recipe. I know exactly what I need and just put it together. It saves money because I don't have to buy these from the store. I'm buying my products in bulk to put in these, so I know that it's cheaper than buying a box mix, especially if you're buying specialty products, like I said, like the gluten-free or dairy-free or things like that. I couldn't afford to buy those in the boxed or processed versions from the store. It just doesn't fit into my budget. So this way we can have the convenience of a boxed mix, or a packaged mix or something like that, but for a very small fraction of the price that we'd pay in the store. So that's pretty awesome. And if it's exactly what we need for our health needs, we can make it dairy-free, we can make it gluten-free, we can lower the sugar, we can lower the salt, we can add in only the spices that we have on hand, anything like that. So it's awesome. So I'm going to check the comments really quick. Like I said, if you have any questions, put them in there. Otherwise, I'll just kind of wrap this up. But yes, make sure that you have the printable so you guys can make the recipes too. Let's see. Okay, someone asked what kind of jars. I don't know if it was it these jars? Oh, the jars next to the sink. I don't know if you meant these jars. These are just quart jars. I just cleaned these out. This is just a fancy designed ball quart jar that I happen to have. There's jars in my kitchen all the time for all kinds of purposes. I don't know if you're like me, but I am like a major jar collector. I think that half of the stuff that we brought to this new house is boxes of jars. So, and all different sizes, all different colors, all different shapes. I'm just jar collector. Let me see if there's anything else. Do I buy my jars in bulk? No, but I do try to get them from, usually from a rummage sale. I'll watch specifically for someone that is maybe older and stopping canning or something like that. Several years ago, there was someone that had this big rummage sale and they were selling off all of their jars. So I loaded up on just a ton of jars, and that's where the bulk of my jars came from. On occasion, if I'm out of something, I'll pick up, a case of jelly jars or something that's a little bit more specialty, because most of what I have is quart jars. And I'll just get those. I try to get those on sale, usually from Menards or another hardware store that's having them on sale, and they're not that bad of a price, but otherwise that's where I get most of my jars from. I don't know if it's showing me the comments or not. Oh, someone mentioned they use old pickle jars. I've used old jars too. They're awesome, especially for recipes like this that you're not going to be canning. You can use old salsa jars or any kind of jar that you bought from the store and put your mixes in that. I used to do that a lot before I started stockpiling more jars. It works perfect. All right, I'm not sure that I'm seeing any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments later. If you're watching a replay of this later, because I'm going to go ahead and leave this up on the page, leave a comment and I will get back to you. Otherwise, make sure to click the link and download your recipes so that you can have them. And we made them the right size. I don't know if you have a recipe binder, but this is the size that I would put in my recipe binder. So we made them that size for you. And if you're interested, I don't know if I put a link to my book anywhere in there. I can go ahead and do that. But this is my book. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it's full of recipes. They're not all just mixed recipes. They're body recipes or recipes for your kids or recipes for your home, all kinds of different things. And then there's a large section in the back that is all mixed recipes, just like these. So I will try to remember to put a link in there for my book too. But otherwise, it was great getting to show you this today. I hope you didn't mind my little messy kitchen demonstration. I see a huge mess to clean up. And I hope this inspires you to make some of your own mixed recipes, because like I said, you can save time when you're preparing your meals, you can save money because you're not buying the box meals at the store, and you can be able to customize them to your health needs, which is probably, top on our priority list. So I will talk to you all later. Thanks for watching, guys.